Hey everyone, Scapes here. It's been a long time since I've created any content, but I have a new project here behind me. This is a UNS 120P, it's a 75-gallon tank. I'm gonna walk you through the equipment that I'm using. I'm gonna show you my scaping process. Hope you enjoy. Let's jump into it. All right, guys, I'm just gonna sit here for a second and talk about setting up your aquarium for the first time, because there's a particular method that I favor that I don't think gets talked enough about in this hobby, particularly for beginners, and that's the dark start method. Now, you've probably heard of the dry start method. This is where you'll do your scaping, especially with carpeted plants. You'll plant your carpeted plants. So a lot of the time you'll see with like Eleocharis or the hairgrass or Monte Carlo. If you're doing an Iwagumi style layout, people use this. You'll plant everything, spray it down, put plastic over your tank and leave it for a few weeks to let the plants get established. I think this is probably okay. There are some people that have tried it, rely on it, think that it's great. I think that you still end up having to tackle one of the main issues of starting your tank, which is the cycling, which can lead to a lot of die-off of your plants, and if you're not careful, of your fish as well. So just to talk about the dark start method for a second, what I like to do is I like to put my hardscape in, put my aqua soil in, and let that sit for 4 to 6 weeks before I actually plant my aquascape. Now, I know that can seem like a long time when you're really excited to get your tank set up, but I promise you, if you're willing to have the patience to wait and use this method, it bypasses so many of the issues that we have as aquarists when we're starting up a new tank. So the benefit of the dark start is you're getting that beneficial bacteria set up before you really get your tank going. The beneficial bacteria in an aquarium will typically develop in and around your hardscape, in the aqua soil that you're using, in the filter media that you're using. And so what you want to do is get those components in your aquarium, fill it with water. If you want, you can use an aquarium biological starter, something like API Quick Start. That should speed the cycling process, so you may not have to wait, say, the typical 6 to 8 weeks for the aquarium to fully cycle. It could speed that up to just a few weeks. But what you want to do is start your filter once the aquarium's full of water and just let it sit there for several weeks. And you're going to want to start testing your water. So get yourself a testing kit. And once you start to see those signs that the tank is cycled, that there's no longer nitrite building up, that your nitrate levels are coming through healthy, then you're going to drain the tank, you're going to plant, you're going to refill, and then you have the confidence of knowing that the tank is already cycled. You can put your fish in and they're not going to suffer or be stressed from a cycling tank. And you're off and running with what is hopefully a very successful and healthy tank from the get-go. Again, guys, I'm a huge proponent of this method. I've done it on my last several tanks. It really makes the process easier. I think so many hobbyists give up in their first few months of this hobby because they're just plagued with algae issues, with fish die-off, with plant melting. Save yourself some trouble. Give this a try. Let me know if you do in the comments. I want to hear your experience with it, and trust me when I say you won't regret it. All right, so that's enough of me talking. Why don't we get started setting this tank up? I'm going to follow my own advice. I'm using the dark start method here. I'm going to put some soil in once I have the layout exactly as I want it. And then I'm going to fill this up. I'm going to let it sit for a few weeks until it's cycled, and then I'll plant. Okay, so you guys can see I've already started getting the scape ready here. I've just really been playing with different layouts. Ever since I got into the hobby, I really wanted to do a U-shaped layout. This is kind of the traditional aquascaping layout that you see in photos that a lot of us probably got excited about when we first learned about the hobby. It's that trail of sand going down the middle. I haven't quite gotten it right yet, so you'll probably see this change a little bit, but my inspiration for this is a lake bed. And so it's not going to be fast flowing like a river, though it is going to have a lot of grassy, wavy plants in this layout. I'm not going to do a more jungly forest look that's pretty common when it comes to these U-shaped layouts. I also have some beautiful stones and driftwood that you can see here. I actually collected this myself on a recent vacation. I will say, guys, if you have the opportunity to collect hardscape near you in a responsible way, you should definitely go for it. Those of us that have been online or gone into our local aquascaping store know that hardscape can get incredibly expensive. And when you're already investing a lot in the equipment itself, it's nice to be able to supplement that with some natural hardscape. So that's what I've done here. In terms of lighting on this tank, I'm using 2 of the Chihiro's Vivid RGB2s. These are excellent lights. In terms of build quality, very solid and sturdy, and I love the controllability of them. You can have them sunset, sunrise, adjust the color temperature, really as much customization as you want with these lights. And I'll say I've used a lot of different lights during my time in the hobby. I have some ADA products as well, which I love, but one of the things that I think sets these Chihiro's lights apart is just the range of options and controllability that you have. Keeping that in mind, if you're going to have your tank in a very public place in your home, say the living room, like where this tank is located, what I really wanted here was the ability to adjust the brightness of the lighting depending on the time of the day and depending on the particular situation. For example, I don't always want a super bright white light that is going to cast kind of a glow across the rest of the room. Late in the evenings, for example, I may want to turn the lights down, have it be a little bit warmer, but still be able to view the tank and enjoy it. And the Chihiro's lights give me that option. So I'm really excited. These are the first time I'm trying out these lights. I have them mounted up on the ceiling there. I decided to go with a really clean look. I didn't want to do the metal frame or bar up top, so I just mounted them straight into the ceiling. I think it looks really nice. What do you guys think? All right, guys. For this one, I wanted to walk you through the actual equipment I'm using for this setup, and then we'll get into the actual scaping. So like I mentioned, this is a UNS 120P tank. It's a 75-gallon tank. And I also have the accompanying white stand. It's an absolutely beautiful setup. You can see super modern, super clean. The tank itself is incredibly high quality. And what I love about the stand is it has a nice smooth finish on it. I believe they call it piano white. And it just looks super high-end, feels sturdy, and doesn't ruin the look of the rest of your room, which is super important to me. Really good base for the start of your tank. So let's talk about what's going on under the hood for a second. Those of you that have seen my other tanks or some of my other content will know that I like really clean, simple tanks. I also don't like a lot of equipment showing in the tank itself, so you'll see me putting as much as I can under the tank. So what we have here, the heart of this aquarium, is going to be an ADA Superjet 1200. These are fantastic filters. I have one on my 60U, which is also a UNS tank, and it has been running non-stop for about 4 years now with 0 issues. These things just keep on churning out water, even for those times when you may slack on maintenance. The Iwaki pump these things have been known to run for 10 plus years nonstop with zero issues. Of course, the build quality of the canister itself is beautiful. They're super easy to clean. There's not a bunch of layers or shelves in these canisters. You just pop open the top, rinse out your filter media, switch out any sponges that you want to have in there, and it's a very quick and easy process. I got this because I wanted to have something that I knew I wouldn't have to worry about over time. You just set it, forget it, it's good to go. Now if we just continue on here for a second, for CO2, I'm using a 5-pound CO2 container here. You can see I have a Greenleaf Aquarium's Pro DS1 regulator on here. I absolutely love Greenleaf Aquariums, guys. I believe that they're the best in the business when it comes to doing CO2 equipment. A lot of the other makers that you see out there, I won't name them, but they're really just copying off the designs of Greenleaf Aquariums. So I'll say if you're based in the US, definitely check them out. They also ship internationally. If you're willing to maybe wait a little bit longer to get yours. I have this hooked up to a UNS 5-pound cylinder at the moment. And like I mentioned before, I really like to limit the amount of equipment that I have in the tank. So I'll be running an inline CO2 diffuser from this regulator through to the superjet outputs hose. I have the same setup running on my 60U. So I've got that right here set up. Nice clean inline diffuser. You can see down there in the corner, I have the adapter for the superjet, which runs off of a 100-volt system as opposed to the 120-volt system that we have here in the US. So you need to step that down. And then I haven't set up the rest of the wiring, but what I'll do is I'll mount the power units for the lighting, the power strips. I will use likely some wire or some sort of zip ties to clean up all this wiring so I have a really clean under the hood look for the aquarium. And the last thing that I'll mention, which I forgot, is in terms of keeping it as minimal as possible, the one thing that I did find with some of my previous tanks is I tried to go without a surface skimmer. That really doesn't work very well. The just layer of film that ends up on the top of the water really doesn't look great. It starts to smell a little funky. So what I do is I replace one of the lily pipes that comes with the ADA Superjet with one of these, which is a separate intake, which is basically your surface skimmer. So this is great because it blends in fairly well, very unnoticeable. And then between your inline CO2 diffuser, this is really all you need to have in the tank is your lily pipes with your surface skimmer. You don't need to have a separate one. I know there's some brands out there that have like a separate surface skimmer that you can plug in and use. I don't want to have another piece of equipment in the tank with an extra wire, so this is what I use. I live in a warm climate here, so you won't see me using a heater. My personal opinion on this is if you keep your house heated to a level that's fairly comfortable for you, your fish will probably be okay. The exception to that is if you have some really finicky, high value fish that need super warm temperatures. An example of that would be discus, for example, where you're spending a lot on those fish. They need super warm temperatures. So in those cases, I'd say don't mess around, get yourself a heater for the tank itself. But my personal opinion is if your house is warm enough to keep you comfortable, most of your fish are probably going to be okay too. right, so we've got our hardscape in. Next, I just need to add some extra stones to keep the driftwood weight down while it's getting waterlogged. And then I'll fill up the tank with water, start the filter, add our biostarter, and I'm gonna let it sit for a few weeks while the tank cycles. So let's do that next. Guys, so it's been about 2.5 months, a little bit longer than I was expecting, frankly, but you know, life happens, and the tank has been sitting filled for all of that time. I've had the light off. I just turned it back on for this video, and the tank is fully cycled. It's ready to go. One thing that happened this time that was a little bit different than when I've done the dark start method in the past was I got brown algae on all of my driftwood, just absolutely covering every inch of the driftwood. And you can see there's quite a lot of driftwood in here. And so I've actually gone through with a toothbrush and just like gently scraped that off. It comes off really easily, but now it's kind of all collected down here in the corners. The flow has kind of pushed it off into the edges. So when I empty the tank, I'm gonna vacuum out all of that algae that's just sitting in there. And then I'm gonna plant, I'll refill everything, and we should be good to go. Now the plan for this scape is it's gonna be super low maintenance, very simple. I'm gonna go with a couple of different species of Vallisneria, which I think gets a little bit of a bad rap in the aquascaping scene because it's viewed as kind of a very like beginner, kind of boring plant. But the look I wanted to go for with this scape was like a very natural lake bed. And the thing I love about Vallisneria is it spreads very easily, it gets very tall, which is great for a tank of this size, and it's very low maintenance. So a couple of species of Vallisneria, we're also gonna do a few crypts in there, but other than that, we're gonna leave it be, and this will hopefully be a really easy scape to maintain. So I'm gonna go ahead, turn on the filter off, I'm gonna drain the tank, we're gonna plant, and then we'll fill her back up. We'll see how it goes. Hope you enjoy this next part. guys, so as you can see, the tank is done. Super excited about how it turned out. I think it's looking really natural and beautiful. Hope you guys agree. I didn't show myself adding the sand and the small stones to the foreground, but I just took handfuls of sand and pebbles once the tank was full and added that in. I do that so that everything doesn't get misarranged once you actually fill the tank with water. Misarranged, is that a word? I did learn a valuable lesson when setting this tank up. I had never used Vallisneria before in any of my tanks. That's what you see mostly in the background in this tank. I'd always had smaller tanks, and it's a quite large plant, so I just never felt the need to use it. When I planted, everything that I had planted just floated up to the surface and totally disturbed all the soil, turned the tank like black for a few days. It was a total nightmare. So lesson to be learned from this is if you are gonna plant Vallisneria in a tank, bury it deep, like several inches deep in the soil, and you'll avoid the mistake that I encountered when I was putting this tank together. So I've added fish in there as well. We've got a combination of a few different Corydoras. We have some Autosynclus. We have some angelfish, which I'm super excited about. This is the first time that I've kept angelfish. They seem to be acclimating really well, so I'm happy about that. We have a few Amano shrimp in there. And we also have rainbow shiners, which are the small schooling fish that you see in there. I've never kept shiners, but supposedly they're fairly low maintenance and easy to keep, and I wanted something that would be fairly easy. So I'm really happy with how it's turned out. It's really matched the kind of lake bed, riverbed vibe that I was going for. I hope that you enjoyed watching me set this up. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you at the next one.